Welcome to the Recovery Roundtable podcast, where the journey to sobriety opens up through powerful discussions and shared experiences. Join your host, Mark, who will bring you stories of triumph and resilience from the heart of Pacific Shores recovery. Every episode offers insights and support, guiding you through the challenges of addiction recovery. Thank you for joining our community. If you're ready to start or continue your recovery journey, we're here to inspire and support you. Let's explore recovery together.
Okay, well, I started out, had a rough childhood, and from the get-go, and I started using, the first thing I used was marijuana. I think I was 11. And,
so it was really young.
Very young, and I used all the way throughout high school, really hard drugs, and I didn't stop until I got married when I was 21.
Okay.
And the man I married, my ex-husband, was, he had never touched a drug in his life. And so he kind of took me out of that. And I was married for 11 years. I drank and whatnot throughout that, and I didn't touch a drug for like.
So before you met your ex, was he aware and kind of came in? And how was that dynamic of you using and him never using a drug?
He was aware.
Okay.
But it
so
was.
Were you active, like trying to hide it, or was it kind of just out in the open?
I mean, I just like told him.
Okay.
You know, I was kind of just telling him about my history and whatnot. But it wasn't a good marriage. It was a very difficult marriage. A lot of damage done in 11 years. We had 2 beautiful children from it, and and we've been separated now for 4 years. And when we separated, I got heavily back into the drug use and alcohol. I suffer from really severe postpartum depression, and it gets worse with every kid. So after I had our second kid, I went into psychosis. Oh, wow. And he was not supportive at all. He essentially left me in Germany by myself to take care of both of our kids and myself. And
so you're in Germany, 2 kids, postpartum depression, just trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And
how did you manage?
I turned to alcohol.
Okay.
And my biological father is a raging alcoholic and drug addict. So I feel like it's kind of like been in my, it could be bound to happen, you know?
Well, and you hear both sides, and science supports both sides, but knowing that biological father, so you were aware that there was this kind of inclination of being more open or susceptible to it.
Absolutely, okay. Yeah. And wine was very cheap to buy in Germany. It was €2 a bottle, and I would drink 3 bottles a day, and I would hide them throughout the house.
And you were still functioning with the kids, and see, that's the incredible thing where a lot of people that aren't in the addiction field or suffering from addiction think it's kind of this black and white, like, oh, I've heard this before. People say, well, I would know if my family was. And it's kind of like, well, maybe, but the body is incredible at doing what it has to do to continue to keep up with the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. But then I'm assuming some consequences started hitting, or things started getting out of hand.
Oh yeah, definitely. I needed support. He left to Poland for 6 months, and he had cheated on me several times throughout the marriage, and it was nothing new. But and every time when I was pregnant. And I had found out about that, so it sent me into the pits of hell, basically. Through each postpartum, I would find out a little bit more, and then, you know, on top of the postpartum, it would just bring me as far down as possible. And so finally, for the first time in 11 years, I told him I wanted a divorce. And he was like, okay. And that was a very difficult time to go through. And I hopped into another relationship pretty immediately, and he was a drug dealer. And that's when I picked up again. And in the last 4 years, I have had 85 days of consecutive sobriety, and that's it in 4 years. And I, throughout my drug use in the last 4 years, I've had 2 mini strokes. I have had seizures and blackouts, and I 2 years ago, when I came to treatment here the first time, I had my Coke was cut with fentanyl, and I OD'd on my bathroom floor and for 45 minutes, and they had to bring me back twice. And that was my rock bottom, you know, as far as I knew at the time. And I came here to treatment. You know, I thought that I was working a program. You know, I was very blessed. This place was a blessing to me. It definitely set me up for where I am now, you know.
Well, and the beautiful thing is hindsight, they say, is always 20/20. Looking back, because we hear it, and you probably even see it here with some people now, they're like, I've got this, I'm really working it. What do you think was different that time than this time? What are you able to see so clearly now?
Oh my gosh. I see so many things clearly now. Last time I came, I was like, I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my kids.
So first thing was I call this the martyr mom of, and it's definitely it's something that you look to kind of like, okay, I can get behind that, because I mean, who doesn't want to make sure the kids are okay?
Right.
But you're aware now of going, okay, this was the primary reason, which is noble and beautiful, but because it didn't start with, I'm going to do it for me, and because I'm doing it for me, my kids are going to be able to benefit.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about the difference between those two mindsets?
Oh my gosh. Well, number one, it's a very beautiful feeling. Like this time around, you know, when I left last time, it was difficult for me to stay sober. And because the difference this time around, there was just a switch in me this time, you know. Last time I was here, I was like, oh, I'm not doing AA. You know, I just had this block against it for no reason at all.
Why do you think that was?
I felt like I was more of an addict than an alcoholic.
Okay, so the term alcoholic was the part in the brain where it's kind of like, I'm a little different.
Yeah.
One of the greatest terms I've heard, and it's big in the program, but is my terminal uniqueness. It's so crazy. Okay, so because of that, it was kind of like, oh, this is affiliated with alcohol. That's not my issue, so therefore, it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
We see that all the time. So how are you able to identify going, oh, wait, if I replace this one word with any person, people, places, or things, I can actually benefit from having an accountability partner, aka sponsor, working steps of self-reflection, aka fourth step, and different things.
Right.
How are you able to make that transition?
I would, what they're called God shots. I believe that, you know, coincidence will happen and you're like, oh, that was crazy that happened, but there's this synchronicity, and that's when something happens over and over and over again, and I believe it's a message from God and or my higher power, and people just would send me little messages, you know, through speaking it, or like me hearing a message, or, you know, whatever it may be. And everybody just try AA, give AA a chance, you know. And you know, the difference I made this time was that if I immediately say, oh, I'm not going to do that, I would stop myself and I would back up and I'd be like, but maybe I'll get a good message, you know. And that's exactly what I did. I started going to AA. Now I've dedicated my life to AA. I picked up a sponsor. I'm working the steps, and it's been a crazy amount of growth in a very short amount of time. And it's just continuing every single day.
Well, let's talk about that, because it's, I mean, we say slow is steady, slow is fast. But one of the aspects is you just mentioned, I'm getting so much growth and work accomplished in a short amount of time. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, like I said, there was like kind of a click in my brain this time around. And I was doing it, in the best way possible, being as selfish as I can this time around, you know. I want to be the best I can be so that I can be good for my children, so that I can attain my goals and, you know, live my dreams. And until this time around, I really did not feel like anything was attainable to me. And from where I came from, this last year and a half was just, I was very spiritually disconnected, and I had another baby, and the postpartum hit me hard this time. I was in a very toxic relationship, and being spiritually disconnected led me down, you know, the road of using and drinking again. And I was only out for 4 weeks this last time, and I lost everything in 4 weeks, everything. And so, and I put myself back in treatment. It was a blessing that I was able to come back here. And I don't know, I just feel like I've said it to my therapist so many times that things are just so different this time around. You know, I have a job already here, and I'm reading the big book every day, and I never thought I'd pick that book up, you know? And
yeah, it can be a heavy book.
Yeah.
Until I surrender, then all of a sudden it's the lightest thing.
Surrender. That's exactly what I did this time around, was surrender.
So we'll come back to surrendering, because that's a huge part. But you mentioned this spiritual connection. How important do you think that is with this growth of mind, body, spirit?
Oh, it's number one priority. Like, it is the first, and however people may identify with spirituality, you know. I came from a background, and like, I've had a spiritual awakening a couple times over the last 4 years. So I came into it with, I know people have a issue with the word God coming into AA and whatever, but I think you come to find out that, you know, you can call it whatever you want, you know, but there is something there greater than us, you know, that I've given my life to completely.
Yeah, I love that. I tell people, I'm like, God doesn't care what you call him, her, it.
Right.
He knows who he is. So it's just like, oh, you mean, can I call you creator? You call me whatever you want.
Yep.
Just get to know me. And that's the part where we see this change. And you're talking about how for the last year and a half it's changed so much. So you were talking about that, then you're talking about surrender. Let's jump into surrender. What do you think kept you from surrendering earlier in this journey?
I would definitely say it had a lot to do with holding on to the past, not doing my healing, and I really just like let guilt eat me alive, you know. And this time around, I knew that I had to completely surrender myself to God, to the program, to AA, in order for me to let go of the past. And I've learned, you know, and everybody should know, I mean, it's easier said than done, but we can't hold on to the past, because there's no way we can go back and change a thing about the past. We can't focus on what's going to happen in the future, because we can't control what's going to happen. So I really try to stay present and very grounded. And yeah.
And that's where we see a lot of people will hold on to the past as opposed to surrender. And there's this is a lot of people think there's weakness in surrender, but we've found over doing this coming up on a quarter of a century, we have found that there's actually strength found within surrender. What's been your experience with surrender and then finding the strength? Right, it's like once you surrender, that strength comes. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, definitely. I have a whole new perspective on life, you know. All of the things that I've been through, all the trauma, all the abuse, you know, whatever it may be, the addiction, I made it through, you know, and I believe 100% that I'm here for a reason. You know, God would put me on this planet with a purpose, and I'm going to live out that purpose. And so it was definitely perspective change, and a mindset change. You know, it takes time. You know, when I got here, you know, if I was to make a list of gratitude like I do every morning, I had such a hard time coming up with stuff that I was grateful for. Now I just fly through that list, you know what I mean?
Now the pen just flows.
Yeah.
So you mentioned purpose. How important do you think purpose is in working a program of growth and healing?
Very, very, very important. And, you know, when we're deeper in our addiction, you know, we get into the mindset that we're not worth anything, you know, that we're never going to amount to anything. And, you know, getting sober, I have such a clear mind now that, and I've always had this feeling of what my purpose should be, but I just never had the confidence in myself to believe that I can attain it, you know?
Yeah.
And now that I do, you know, and my purpose is 100% to help other people and share my story, and to, I don't know, just like help guide people.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how when we link service with purpose, Because we see a lot of people that will come in and life is so difficult when there's an absence of purpose. And so one of the things that we teach here is also there's seasonal purpose. A lot of people miss that. They're like, you got one shot, and that's I mean, part of my story is I was terrified. What if I choose the wrong purpose? Then I'm screwed for the rest of my life. So of actually having the permission to know, hey, it doesn't have to be locked in. There's different seasons, and this season has been coming up on 21 years for me. I still say the same prayer every single morning. Hey, if this is the purpose, keep the fire burning. But God, if not, extinguish it and open another door, and the fire just continues to burn. So as you're sharing with purpose, linking that with service, and then now with growth, what does the future look like for you?
Well, there's a lot of, I'm doing some deep work and healing and really putting everything out on the table, because in order for us to heal, we have to be honest and we have to be vulnerable, which can be really difficult for people. And you have to, in order to heal, you have to feel. And for a long time, in my addiction, from my experience, I was using in order to not feel. And so just really riding the waves, the roller coaster of emotions. And I'm grateful for the emotions. I'm grateful that I can feel these human emotions, and I'm not shoving them down not to be dealt with, because eventually they will be dealt with. And, I live in Tennessee. So my plan is to go back, be with my kids, but I really want to start work, doing some kind of service work. I do chakra healing and sound bowl healing, and I want to take that to treatment facilities and mental health facilities, and I don't know, that just kind of feels really good on my heart. And continue to share my story, which, I led a meeting the other night, and it was nerve-wracking because it was the first time I'd ever had to do it in front of a bunch of people, but somebody made a good point. They're you have to start somewhere, and that just clicked in my brain, is that, eventually, I want to help as many people as I possibly can, especially women.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that we see so many people struggle with, and why we're having these series of just open conversations is, you say you got to feel to heal, but of actually sitting in the feelings, which means sitting in the pain.
Yeah.
How were you able to get to a place that you felt either safe enough, or that you gave yourself permission to say, okay, I'm in a safe place, it's not going to kill me, even though the brain goes into fight or flight, to provide that space where you could really heal?
I think that coming here and having the staff, the peers that we're surrounded with, our core groups, our therapists, really sets you up in the beginning to be able to be vulnerable and release those emotions and talk about the things that have held you back in life, that has, our demons, so to speak, things that we don't want to share with other people, our shadow side, What I think this is a beginning stage where we can get kind of used to doing it, and then there's an outpouring of support that comes back afterwards. The real test is when we get home. I've had, the difference now is that I'll have days that are not that great, and I mean,
there's bad days in recovery.
Yeah. We can't be, happy-go-lucky and living in unicorn la la land all the time. But those bad days, I think every day is a blessing. But those bad days, I don't let them control my entire day. I'm it's okay that I'm feeling like this, But yes, we're sitting in those emotions, and I feel I'm biased, but I really am grateful for those painful moments. I'm grateful for the things that I've gone through, everything that I've gone through, because I believe there's a lesson to be learned in everything. We can pick up a lesson. It's just whether we're listening to that lesson, we're going to learn from that lesson when we continue forward.
So, and thank you for sharing just so openly, because this is the part so many people think they're so broken they're beyond repair, or they attach meaning of this shouldn't have happened or different things. How are you able to get to a place where you actually found, you talk about the lesson or the gift, I forget your phrasing, but even within the pain, how are you able to get to that place where you're able to find that part and actually find healing within it?
Well, I think that, I have been admittedly in the victim mentality before. You did this to me, this is why I am like I am, and blaming everybody else for my problems, and I'm addicted to this because this happened to me when I was a kid. And I really had to come out of that victim mentality. And
Okay.
Yes, those things happen to us, but ultimately we make the choice to pick up and use. And because there are people that go through things that don't ever pick up and use, and they don't have the phenomenon of craving, or but yeah.
So that's impressive. So the first thing that you talked about was the power of being able to share, so community, environment, of having a safe enough place. You also talk about something we see a lot of people struggle with this, especially when they first start their journey of recovery, is the fear to actually be vulnerable and to share openly. Well, first let's talk about how you were able to do that, but then also what the results were, or what we call it, the fruit from doing the work that you recognized once you started to share openly about the stuff that you're thinking, I don't want to share this on the other side. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like when I first got here, I'm a deeply emotional person. I'm an empath, and I really feel the feelings of others. And when I first got here, I was a wreck. And the first few days, drugs were still in my system, so I was like, why am I not feeling anything? Why don't I feel guilty about all the stuff I just did? The path of destruction I left at home. But then it hits you. And I definitely believe that I know talk therapy is very beneficial. I haven't had a sense of safety my entire life. So when I found that sense of safety here, it was easy for me to open up. I'm the biggest crybaby here, like in the entire treatment facility, because like I will cry all the time, and I'll just.
I can give you a run for your money, personally.
Yeah, you think? Because people will be like, "I wish I could cry like you," and I was like, "It's really easy for me." But I believe that there's this book. It's called The Body Keeps Score, and I had a therapist recommend it to me, and it's about how we hold all of our trauma, any of these bad scenarios that we believe, we hold it in our central nervous system. And if we do not open up those wounds, and it sucks, to think about opening up a wound. It is painful, in the literal sense as well. But if we do not open up that wound, it's going to make us sick. It's going to cause anxiety, depression, all sorts of things. And I've found that my experience this time around, the more I open up and I let those emotions out, and I'm very honest, because there's things that we don't want to talk about, I've had to be told that, we may do, excuse my language, shitty things in our addiction, but we're not shitty people, We still have souls, and we're, empathetic, sympathetic human beings. But I definitely believe that each time I open up, I release just a bit more of that guilt, the shame, and I'm a person that lets my guilt eat me alive, but it doesn't hurt as bad anymore.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that about the guilt, because it's the guilt and the shame that we see literally continue to drive people back to the very thing they don't want to do.
Yep.
And it's the fear that keeps them from sharing. However, once we surpass, we walk through the fear and share, like you said, you're looking around in group, you share, and everyone's still there kind of like, oh my gosh, me too. Mm-hmm. So having that safe space, but sharing so openly, all of a sudden the guilt and the shame begin to wither. When for lack of a better term, it's like when I tell on myself, I have internal accountability. So I'm like, okay, I did this, I felt like such a crappy person. Everyone's like, oh, you did that too? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have to carry this guilt or shame anymore.
Yeah.
It's what I did. Take accountability, make the amends, And then now I'm able to learn from this and to move forward. So man, you shared so many beautiful nuggets. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And my biggest goal in these series is for anybody listening of understanding, like, gosh, this is normal. This is the kind of stuff that we talk about when I have a safe place I can open up. You also talked about, and I don't want to brush over it, you talked about ownership. That is such a big thing of raising the hand and be like, okay, this, even though that I didn't own, that's not me, this happened to me, I'm going to own this part. And then, I don't know why it works this way, but it's like once I own something, then I kind of have this control or influence of where I go next. And it's so empowering. So, well, thank you for sharing. So glad to see your growth. Your trajectory has been awesome since you've been here. And one question that I'd love to have you leave with us is, what would you tell that previous version of you? Like, what's one piece of advice to maybe if someone's out there struggling or going like, I don't know, like I'm really messed up, I don't know, whatever that looks like for you, what would you tell that version of you?
Give yourself a chance. You're so incredibly worth it. And, you know, give it to God, and He's going to take care of you.
I love that. So the biggest thing is you're worth it.
Absolutely.
That is powerful. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. We're so glad you're here, and we hope that you found this episode helpful. We're going to ask that you leave us a review if you found this helpful, because what it does is it helps other people find this valuable resource to hear these inspirational stories in order to grow. Now, once you leave the review, I'm going to ask that you take a screenshot and then send me the email. And you can send it to Mark, M-A-R-K, at PacificShoresRecovery.com. And what I'm going to do is every single month, we're going to pick one winner, and we are going to offer a free one-on-one breakthrough session, either virtually in here, or if you're in person, would love to meet you with me. That will help see where you're stuck, where you want to go, and to help create this bridge to help get you there. So thank you again for listening. Want to make sure that this continues to be highly valuable time. Please leave us a review, and love to see you in our raffle for the 101 breakthrough session.